I am so impressed, and I'm loving this home workout movement and seeing what people are doing and what they're using. I have seen burpees over a horse. I have seen ground to overheads with a kid. I've seen bicep curls with a cat, and step ups on cases of Coke.
Yeah.
So the creativity and what people are doing is truly, truly just amazing me.
All right. Hey, y'all. Thanks again for checking in and following us on social media. Today, I already messed up, so it's fine. I'm going to keep on talking. All right. Hey, y'all. Thanks again for checking in to another Coaches Q&A, also known as Coaching in Quarantine. I have a very special guest on with me today. I have my mentee, Josie Traberg. Josie is actually Swedish, living in Norway right now, and she is the director of performance for PLAE with a Y, PLAE Sport Norway. And she is also in the University of Denver Masters of Sport Coaching program. That's where her and I met for the first time, virtually, just like this. And then we actually had a chance to finally see each other in person at the NSCA National back in DC in July. So Josie and I have obviously made a professional acquaintance to a friendship, and we stay in touch with each other often. So Josie, why don't you tell everybody out there that doesn't know much about you, kind of who you are, what you're about, and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, sure. And first of all, thank you so much for having me on, Marisa. It's a true honor. As Marisa said, I'm Josie. I'm Director of Performance at PLAE Sport Norway. Nothing to do with PLAE USA and Marisa's work, but we strive to be as cool as PLAE USA. So I just moved back to Norway after spending the last almost 10 years in the US. Started out just doing a year of exchange, playing basketball at a boarding school in Connecticut, and then ended up down at IMG Academy in Florida, where I played basketball through high school and then did a post-grad year. Later on, ended up working as a basketball coach down there 4 summers in a row. And that definitely had a huge impact in terms of where I am today. Just seeing and being a part of that facility and the mindset and mentality of that place and being there as it continued to grow. I still stay in touch with all the coaching staff and everyone down there. And I might end up down there again one day, who knows? After leaving Florida, I was down there for 3 years. I was in Colorado, played basketball at Regis University, and then professionally started working for a performance facility called Vantage Movement. Did that and was also just ended up, getting my personal trainer's education until I kind of made the move into sport performance and getting acquainted with the NSCA and all those things in that process. So today, my living and working now in Norway, my goal is really to not only introduce sport performance and really just the idea of what strength and conditioning training is here in Norway. We have the concept and we have great educational systems that kind of support that, but not in the same way. So my job is doing everything from coaching, just athletes of all walks of life. I also actually work as the youth development coach for the Basketball Federation here in Norway. So I'm in charge of all the 13 and 14-year-old girls in the Northeast region here. So I have athletes that are that young, and then I have adults up into the 50s and 60s still, trying to run marathons and do crazy stuff like that. So yeah, it's an interesting way to try to incorporate this idea of sport performance into the Norwegian sport mindset. But that's essentially a little summary of all the things that I do.
Well, Josie, I mean, I know that you are always a multifaceted individual, and you're never short of things to do, whether it's something that, it's work for you, it's a job, or you just tend to fill up, you always tend to fill up your schedule and your calendar. You're just a doer at heart. And I was able to see that firsthand. So they're definitely 100% true for that. You talked a little bit about how, in the United States, we tend to have more of structured education on sports performance. But the actual population of the United States, when it comes to sport and fitness, it's very different. So kind of talk about that contrast where in Norway or in Scandinavian countries, fitness and sport is very affluent there, but maybe the education is not there. So talk about kind of that adjustment that, you had from one country to another.
Right. So, I mean, I think this, just seeing obviously the difference between Scandinavia and the US is obviously evidenced in me coming and wanting to play ball in the US at a really young age, and then deciding that I was going to get the best development opportunity personally and also do better coming back to my national teams playing in Europe and whatnot by being in the US. But the best way to describe it is obviously we're smaller countries. We are great at skiing. As you guys surely know, every time there's, the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. And I guess you could say that obviously national sports are skiing and soccer. But compared to, the US where there's 330 million people, we're somewhere between 5 and 9, depending on what Scandinavian country you're in. Of course, that gives you less people to choose from. But sport is implemented from an early age through the educational system, but it's more based in play and fun for children. There is not the same pressure and expectations of kids playing 3 sports and obviously picking a sport and using that as a means or a vehicle to get to college. College education is free here. And so, which is real nice. One of the reasons I ended up coming back home, it's easier to get a master's paid for here. But because everything is paid for in that sense, it doesn't create that same sense of competition in youth sports or in, teenage sports, if you will. So that also means that there is not the same need or requirement for performance specialists. So sport performance specialists primarily work with national teams or talent development within the different federations. So if you are in sport performance, you are typically in that area. Now, what we're trying to do at my facility is actually get this out to more of the ordinary person. Norwegians and Swedes in general, and Danes as well, are just incredibly healthy and fit people. And I'm just amazed at coming back here and teaching people Olympic weightlifting, for instance, how quickly people learn and how well people move and the capacity they have for training for the intensity. I'm just mind blown. It's nothing that I've seen in the US, not even with my athletes that I had over there. So that actually makes it easier to kind of introduce this to the general population. And that creates a new market for us, as a matter of fact, which again, helps us hopefully expand this and make this more of a thing that people are interested in. Everyone wants to run and jump faster and be stronger. It doesn't necessarily only have to be focused on the athlete.
Yeah, no, I think that's super cool. And definitely thank you for all that insight because, most of our audience and our listeners, they're going to be, from the United States. You are my second international coach that I've had on here, but, it's been super cool being able, to have that reach and, have the opportunity to be able to talk to people from other countries, even though I met you being in the United States.
Right.
You talk about the experience that you've had with your athletes and how it's been super unique and you've been coaching really across the ages, from young to, maybe not necessarily geriatric, but definitely older,
Right.
that are still super active. Obviously, we have this pandemic going on right now, and the end is far in sight. Right? It's just one of those things. Can you talk about the adjustment that you've made up until this point? Maybe a lot of the individuals that are tuning in, they are coaches. So can you talk about the adjustment that you've had as a coach, and kind of maybe some creative ways you've been dealing with or doing for your athletes?
Right. So, I mean, definitely just dealing with this in the first couple of days was obviously panic mode, trying to figure out what do we do? How do we do this? How do we, as our facility just opened in November. So it was a matter of asking are we canceling or freezing memberships? Are we asking people to continue paying their memberships? Considering that we just opened, we have about 250 members now. That was a question that, the first question was, what do we do with that? Thankfully, our members have been incredible and they're still supporting us. So we then could just set up an online coaching platform for follow-up in that sense. So all of our members that are interested have access to, we just use the app True Coach. So they get all of their follow-up and programming through that. So I have a team of about 6 coaches that are all just on every day, providing feedback. Me and my other head coach, we're in charge of just all the programming. There's of course a lot of the general like at-home trainings and what can you do and whatnot, but also making sure this is an opportunity to program a lot of plyometrics and running and getting people to do things they wouldn't otherwise. But we can definitely tell now in Norway, this has been going on for 4 weeks, that people are starting to fall off a little bit. And although this is a private facility and we have paying members, the accountability part is still really, really important. We can tell that our members miss their daily lives, obviously, and being at the gym so much. The gym and the facility has become, it's a social hangout spot. So people might train once or twice a day, and these are normal, ordinary people with ordinary jobs. People train twice a day still. And the facility kind of has become their social hangout spot. This is where they meet new friends. This is where a lot of people meet people they end up, dating or marrying and whatnot. And so with that, they lost their social platform. So we're trying to keep them engaged with competitions and challenges and weekly check-ins. We've even had some Zoom meetings and we do some YouTube coaching and training. We have a running club going. So it's definitely multifaceted, but challenging, but definitely working. And then the second part for me is following up my basketball athletes, my youth development kids for the national teams. And for them, it's a lot of just video skill coaching. So we have different apps and tools we're using to make sure they have their workouts and their skill workouts. Most kids can find access to a hoop. There's been some issues with hoops, being closed down and they can't, be in the park. But we're using this as an opportunity for all the kids to just get better at their ball handling. So we're drilling that hard. Everyone has 4 to 5 heavy-duty skill workouts a week, in addition to their strength conditioning that they're doing. Nice. So trying to keep everyone, checked in and engaged. The fact that they know that there's someone out there that is watching and seeing what they're doing and following up, that is making a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know I've followed you on social media, I think since day one. And I mean, you yourself, you're posting workouts, you're posting yourself, training and staying active and doing things and, being outside in the backyard that you have, right. And I think that's so important for us coaches is that this couldn't be a better time for us to show. Right. And for us to be seen doing these things and being creative ourselves, because that's a platform of motivation in itself. Right. So right now, I mean, obviously, you work, day and night and you are so committed to, giving. Where is there a place or a thing that you're doing for yourself that you're really passionate about? Is there anything outside of work, outside of Coach Josie that you love to do that you've been able to keep up with right now?
Yeah, I'm really, really fortunate actually in this time So I'm living and staying, actually I'm living in isolation with my closest coworkers. So with my boss and 2 other coworkers for a couple of reasons. One, we're developing a huge online coaching platform that's kind of, again, reaching out to the general population and the masses. And 2, we have an equipment company. So we spend a lot of time in just packing equipment. We're a smaller country and therefore a smaller company. So we do that ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I write little notes on all the equipment going out and all the packages, but because we're in this an amazing house that actually has a garage gym. I'm really, really able to focus on my own weightlifting, my Olympic weightlifting right now. Right. So I'm doing 2 days lifting sessions, 5 days a week, and in general also just experimenting with a lot of my own programming in terms of things that I normally program. So whether it's plyometrics or ladder drills or new ideas for plyos, more like focusing on and trying out rotational movements, trying to get those plane of movements going a little more. So me getting to be focused in on my work and obviously on studies, but then being able to take a break twice a day and going and lifting and just blasting music. I'm the only one in Norway that listens to country music, or just bad ratchet 2000s hip hop. But that is the one focus that I have right now that I'm really, really grateful for. And while most of our members actually now have a barbell, so they can work on their weightlifting as well, and we're coaching them up on that. Obviously I have, hundreds of pounds here so that I can throw on a bar and lift away. So really, really focused on that lately and loving it's a frustrating process indeed, but loving it.
Yeah. So. And I forgot to mention that earlier. And I mean, you did just mention that you are an athlete. You not only you're a basketball player, but you are a competitive weightlifter. Can you just give us an insight? I kind of came in towards the end of the journey when you had your ACL tear. Can you talk about briefly, because that was an eye-opening experience for me about the process. You really didn't have reconstructive surgery. Right. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you were back on the court playing, planting, changing direction, continuing weightlifting. That was an eye-opening experience as a mentor for you to see how quickly you got back up on your feet. Can you just tell the audience a little bit about that journey that you had?
So fall 2018, I had a freak accident, boat accident that I landed on impact in water and tore my ACL. Flew back to Norway to have it surgically repaired, but then in the process had to wait a little bit, went back to the US to work, and was just looking at like options for PRP, but got in touch with a doctor that was doing stem cells and had actually worked with some other athletes, primarily CrossFitters and volleyball players, but had some success in doing stem cell treatments as opposed to reconstructive ACL surgeries. And just having had a couple of bad experiences with ankle surgeries in the past, I was just curious about this route, and I started reading a lot about it. The little research that is out there, this is obviously not something that's been around for a long time. So there's no, research going back 20 years looking at, the results. But I was kind of concerned about just like the mechanical consequences for my body of having irregular reconstructive surgery. So I was like, I'm going to try the stem cells and see what happens. And I had this stem cell procedure in November. I was back competing in weightlifting in early April. So just about a year ago, I was back on the weightlifting platform. Not 100%, but I was hitting about 90% of my pre-injury lifts. And since then I've probably gotten stronger. So I've now set PRs since then that I never thought I would with an injured knee. And then when I got back to Norway in the fall, made the decision that I was just going to play basketball, do a little basketball comeback, play once a week, but then decided that my body was good to bring it back up into the professional league. So now I play professional basketball in Norway. And obviously not playing right now. Our season was cut short right before the finals. But so I'm definitely a two-sport athlete competing in weightlifting and I'm playing basketball.
Nice. That's awesome. Thank you so much for walking us through that. And it's really inspiring and motivating that like, hey, there are other things out there. Obviously, like, everything has to be lined up and, whatever the case is, you have to be, everything has to be in the right order, whether it be finances and time and, resources and stuff like that. But I just thought that was really cool to share with the audience because, you were the first athlete that I ever heard of having stem cell, right. done on an ACL. So that was really cool. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And I would definitely say that, I mean, if anyone, and I've had athletes that have obviously come to me and I've done their rehabilitation post-op for ACL tears. But anyone that I meet that are considering ACL surgeries. Now, I'm just saying that if you can avoid having the surgery and try stem cells, just try going that route. Or obviously it works with shoulders and ankles and other body parts, backs and whatnot too. I definitely encourage people looking into that as an option. I do understand that it can feel a little concerning, and because considering there's not a lot of research yet, but the potential risks or consequences are so low. So you might as well benefit from trying it. That's my one thing. I'm 100% supporter of this.
Nice. That's awesome. All right. Well, we're going to take a shift a little bit. We talked about different dynamics with recovery, but let's talk about your new family dynamics. You talked about how you're living in a house with your coworkers, whereas you were living by yourself prior to this quarantine. Your family now is all in Norway, whereas previously most of them were in Sweden. So can you just talk about, there are so many coaches out there where they're dealing with a very similar thing. Obviously, the United States is a far greater size-wise country compared to the Scandinavian countries individually, but they're dealing with not being able to see their family or, talking to them from afar. We have people that are being directly impacted from this pandemic. So can you just talk personally about, the dynamics that you've been dealing with?
Right. Yeah. So actually, my dad, he was kind of ahead of all of us and kind of projecting that this was going to happen. So he has already been living in just self-quarantining himself for probably about 6-7 weeks now. Will attend occasionally go to the grocery store, but other than that has no interaction with anyone else. He's in the risk group himself, just from having some lung issues previously and being over 60 and male. So that is obviously, just I could go to his house and I can knock on the door and I can leave stuff outside, but he does not want to interact because he's obviously worried. My mom was quarantined after traveling and coming back from Spain. So she just obviously had to experience and feel what that was like, and going through that whole process and coming back into the country and being in the airport. And because she's Swedish and not Norwegian, she did not have a good experience in that process in the airport. And then sadly, several of her friends have been really, really sick. So they all had COVID-19. And just what they have all said is that, they have never been sick like this before. Thankfully, none of them had to go to the hospital. They were all able to just stay at home. But this was about 3.5 weeks ago, and they're recovering now and they're doing better, but they were definitely scared. And again, had never experienced the sickness like this before.
And there was it's kind of hard when you hear international news, right? You kind of have to sift through it. You really don't know what's true, what's not true. And we had the chance to talk, I think it was 2 weeks ago. And I asked you then, but there was, a newscast that went out saying that the country of Sweden was they didn't do lockdown right away. They were just like, yep, let our citizens get it. It's no big deal. We need to develop antibodies, and all that kind of stuff. But can you talk about the truth in that?
Yeah. Great question. I know there's been a lot of people have asked me this. So Norway went into the complete lockdown mode right away. We had a couple of hundred people that were getting sick, and we had one person dead. And we went complete lockdown. Absolutely everything closed down. Now Sweden went into the approach of this, that one, it was better to let the virus just work its way, to, like you said, have people develop antibodies, and that way they could still keep the economy and keep society going. Unfortunately, that does not really work when there was no precaution being taken, and thousands of people were getting sick. What the argument has been is obviously that was selfish in a way, because so many people were dying or are dying. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I want to say it's something around like 400 people in Sweden that have now passed away. And that's, I think there's about 50 in Norway. So now the biggest arguments and the biggest approaches and the debate here has been that Sweden didn't feel like they were in a position to shut down the country because of what it would do to the economy and society. Indeed, a kind and considerate thing, because obviously it's hard for everyone to now sit at home without jobs. But what both Norway and Sweden and Denmark, for that matter, what our countries are able to do is, even now we're all on unpaid leave, the government actually pays many people's salaries. It's different in everyone's situations, but a lot of people are still then being paid, even though they're not allowed to work. But yeah, no, the whole thing about Sweden has definitely been, it's everything that's in the news here too, is that we have no idea what our neighboring country is doing. And my mom is obviously super concerned for all of our family, hoping that they stay put and stay isolated. But it's looking like now that Sweden is making some changes to this, and they're realizing that it probably was not the best approach. They were really, really asking the citizens to trust them and believe in them, that this was the best way to go, but it was taking too many lives in the process. So it's going to be interesting to see now after Easter, to see what the big changes are going to be in Sweden as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And again, thank you for kind of like putting some rumors to rest and just kind of bringing some truth to, other countries that, again, it's tough because there's so many things on the news and it's hard. You kind of got to sift through it, like I said, and, kind of maneuver a way where, you can find your own truth through it. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or anything you want to mention about like during this time or kind of things that you've been dealing with or?
No, I think like everyone else, obviously this is a really, really weird time. I think the most incredible thing that I've seen in this process, and this goes through myself and my work as well, is that this has been an incredible time for reinvention. I am so impressed with how creative coaches are being and reaching out and staying connected with their athletes, holding them accountable. I actually just had a similar interview and recording with IMG Academy with the current girls that are in the basketball academy down there. Kind of just as a little encouragement for them to stay on put and finding routines to finding a way to keep their life going as athletes, especially collegiate and high school athletes, that everything is on a strict schedule. And especially for them, seeing with young kids that all of a sudden, they don't have a graduation and they don't get to go to practice every day. For them to find a routine and find a way to kind of reinvent their lives has been really impressive. And then, of course, from a business perspective, seeing what we're able to do, but seeing what other coaches and other facilities are doing in terms of keeping people engaged. I am so impressed, and I'm loving this home workout movement and seeing what people are doing and what they're using. I have seen burpees over a horse. I have seen ground to overheads with a kid. I've seen bicep curls with a cat, and step ups on cases of Coke. Yeah. So the creativity and what people are doing is truly, truly just amazing me. I also think it's been a great opportunity for people to kind of reinvent the way that they're training and the way that they're moving, especially in a time when now everyone's sitting put at home. Yeah. So I obviously want to encourage everyone to keep doing this. And, extreme times calls for extreme measures. And this is really, really an incredible time to see what businesses are doing in sports and in performance to reinvent themselves. So I really, really applaud that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that highlight and that message. That was awesome. Yep. So I didn't tell you about these last couple questions. I call them my Corona fire questions, and you just got to be real quick with these answers. You can't think quick. You can't think a lot. Just one word to one line answers. All right. Are you ready for them?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. The first one is your new COVID go-to meal.
Chips.
Oh. Okay, your new go-to lift, or no, excuse me, your new go-to exercise.
Burpees over things.
Okay. Do you have a new COVID habit?
Doing yoga.
Nice. Something you took advantage of before COVID hit.
Something I took advantage of before. Sleeping. Nice. Still sleeping, by the way.
Yeah, good. Do you have a new go-to COVID TV show or movie that's like a must-see?
I wish I could say so, but no, haven't not watched TV.
All right. Well, then a book, an article, anything different?
Definitely PubMed, just old research articles.
Oh my gosh. Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, she lives and breathes training, sport,
Yep.
research. She's an athlete. Josie, thank you so much for being on today. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you more and more every time that we talk. And I know it's only been I think only a year or two, but it's truly been a pleasure. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. It's been so great.